Carol, are you all ready to start?
I am.
Okay. Let me. Okay, and if someone could catch people as they come into the meeting room, I will call tonight's meeting to order. This is the meeting of Neighborhood Planning Unit F. I'm Debbie Skupczynski, your chair, and want to welcome some of the folks that attend every meeting and some of the newcomers. Happy New Year to everybody. Also joining the meeting and acting as co-host is Kay Stevenson, who is vice chair of NPUF and also public safety chair, and Carol Shinara, who is secretary, and she'll be taking minutes tonight. The committee chairs will introduce themselves when we get to that part of the agenda. I also wanted to introduce Doug Young, who is the planner that's been assigned from the city to attend our NPU meetings and report on our activities. Today is MLK Day and a city holiday, so I don't really expect that there'll be a lot of city representatives tonight. Also, most of our applications are on the consent agenda, which I'm going to load in the chat in just a few minutes. So I'm expecting the meeting to be shorter than our usual marathon meetings. Let's keep our fingers crossed. There are two agendas. There's the long agenda that has the map at the top. This is the agenda with everything that we will discuss tonight. And then there's also a consent agenda, which includes applications which historically this NPU has approved with little or no discussion. They were both sent out with the NPU reminder email this weekend and will be in the chat, as I just mentioned. A quick orientation for first-time or infrequent Zoom users. When you entered the room, your audio was muted. Please stay muted throughout the meeting so that background noise does not interrupt the flow of the meeting. You can unmute on your screen or use *6 to mute or unmute if you're listening in on your phone. Zoom publishes a participant list which lists everyone who is attending this meeting. Your name will be at the top of the list. If there is more than one person using the same device, please include both names on the participant list. To add a name, just click more to the right of your name to find an option to rename. It's actually pretty simple. Tonight we'll be using the honor system to vote. We are not identifying verified members. I ask you to please resist the urge to vote if you don't live in the NPU. In the event we do need a hand count, we will be using the raise your hand icon. You'll find that button behind the reactions tab. And I'll give you more direction when we get close, when we need to. Residents of NPU F may vote on any issues unless there is a financial interest on the application or motion. For example, property or business owners may not vote on their own variances, but can vote on others. If you're not an NPU resident, business owners may vote if they have met the requirements as described in our bylaws. There is a chat room for you to share comments to an individual or everyone in the meeting. For most of you, it will be at the bottom of your screen. Copies of the agenda, the consent agenda, and the minutes for December will be uploaded in a few minutes. The chat room will be monitored for comments and questions, but we will only be answering questions if they are relevant to the topic being discussed. At NPUF, our meetings follow a town hall format. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function, or if you are on your phone, hit *9. You'll be called on to speak in order that the hands go up. Be sure to stay muted until you are invited to speak, and then identify yourself so folks will know who is speaking. Please don't wave your hand on screen unless you are just being friendly, because there are too many people in the room for me, Kay, or Carol to see it. And please do not speak unless you're called on. Others may be in the queue and waiting their turn to speak. Please keep all questions and comments germane to the topic being addressed and respectful of everyone in the room. I'll be watching the time and may need to cut off discussion so that we can get through our agenda in a reasonable amount of time. To allow all an opportunity to speak, I will ask that you only speak once on a topic unless you are asked for clarification or a question on previous remarks. So that we can hear and we can get a good recording for the archives, it's important that only one person speak at a time. If you interrupt, you will be muted. Finally, we are here tonight because city ordinances provide residents of Atlanta through the NPU system the opportunity to provide recommendations and comments on applications and legislative changes that impact our quality of life. It's our responsibility to tell them what we think and, when appropriate, to share the strength of that opinion through hand counts. All votes taken at the NPU are only recommendations. Final decisions are made by city boards or city council, and I hope that you will take advantage of expressing your opinion there as well, either in writing, by phone, or by leaving a comment during public hearing opportunities. Before we get started, I want to ask, are there any items that should be added to the agenda this evening? If you have any agenda items to add, please raise your hand. I don't see that any hands raised. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Kay. Is there a second?
I think the way we have this muting set up, people can't unmute themselves, so they can't,
I know, so I'm going to have to fix that.
or just unmute one person and tell them to do it.
Okay, would anyone like to second that motion?
I do.
Thank
Thank you, Rich. Okay, are there any objections to adopting the agenda with no changes? If you have an objection, please raise your hand. I don't see any objections. The agenda is adopted. The next order of business is the approval of minutes. Thanks to Carol Shannara, our secretary, for taking the minutes last month. The December minutes have been posted on the NPU F website, and a link was sent to those on the NPU mailing list, which is over 500 people, and includes verified members. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from last month? See any hands raised? May I have a motion to adopt the minutes from December?
So moved.
Thank you, Kay. Is there a second? Can someone second the motion? Thank you, Rich. Are there any objections to adopting the minutes? If not, please do that by unanimous consent. Okay, I see no objections. The minutes are adopted. I don't have any announcements tonight, so we're going to start off with city departmental representatives. The first on the list is Atlanta Police Department. I saw that Captain Melicky is here tonight from Zone 6. Captain, do you want to start?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm Captain Peter Malecki. I'm the assistant commander for Zone 6. If this meeting were yesterday, I'd have a pretty positive report out. But as some of you know, we got hit really hard in Zone 6 last night with vehicle break-ins and vehicle vandalisms. Virginia Avenue, Virginia Circle, Briarcliff, all the way up to the shopping center on Carillon. We had about 80 vehicles broken into or vandalized in total. The one thing I can tell you almost with certain is, these guys are looking for firearms. When they break into these vehicles, the video we pulled so far, they break the windows, they check the glove box, and they're on to the next vehicle. So while it's extremely important that we don't give them that opportunity, we keep the firearms out of the cars. In my opinion, that's what they're looking for, and they're looking for key fobs in the vehicle. We had a similar incident about 10 days ago around Grant Park. It's my opinion that it's probably going to be the same crew. In that case, we recovered a stolen vehicle in Zone 3 that was used. Thankfully, we got that vehicle a couple days ago, so we're processing it. I'm hopeful we'll get some evidence back, but the method seems the same, and it's a little uncharacteristic because typically, they're rummaging through your car, they're taking something. The ones we've had last night, if there was nothing in the glove box, they were onto that next vehicle. So again, it's important to keep those cars clean. I provided my email address in the chat. If you or your neighbors or anyone has any video, I would ask that you send that to me so I can get it to the appropriate investigative units, as well as getting it out to my guys in the field as soon as possible. I know this is it's something that I take seriously, the zone takes seriously, and we want to do everything we can to get this under control before we have a repeat of what happened last night. So are there any questions on that?
Does anyone have any questions for the captain? Please raise your hand if you have any questions. I know several of you are here because of this issue. The raise your hand icon is under the reactions tab, which is on most computers at the bottom of your screen. If you click on that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't actually have a question. I think you probably answered most of the questions that we would have. So, I appreciate that. The one thing I would ask you about, which is not necessarily related to the car break-ins, I went today to look at the open data portal, and it appeared that it had not been updated since January 10th. So if you could find out what's going on with that, because I think a lot of my counterparts in other neighborhoods use that to put statistics out to our residents and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's all I have.
Sure, I'll absolutely forward that message up, and we'll see what's going on with that and why it hasn't updated to this point.
Okay, thank you.
Marla Johnson. Oh, Johnson, do you have a question?
Yes, I was just curious, are these cars that are parked on the street, or are they going up driveways?
So the vast majority of them are parked on the street. What we noticed is there's a suspect vehicle. We know it's a blue sedan. It's most likely stolen. It's got a temporary tag, and we'll have 3 to 4 males walking in front of that car, and they're just hitting every car parked on the street. And then they'll jump in that getaway car. And we did actually put eyes on it. Unfortunately, it got away from us. But that's what they're doing, is primarily hitting vehicles parked on the street.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dan O'Toole, did you have a question?
Yeah, quick question. You mentioned they're looking for key fobs too. Are people leaving the fob for their own vehicle there and they're trying to steal the vehicle, or something else?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can't tell you how many of our vehicles that are stolen in the city have keys left in them. It's like 50%. So they are looking, a lot of times people will leave a spare key fob to their vehicle inside the vehicle. So they have the opportunity just to get in, hit that button, and then they got a car. So yes, they are trying to steal the vehicles as well.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other hands.
I just don't know how to raise the hand. My apologies. I tried. I just had what can we do to avoid this? I know it's like the $1 million question, but right, because I think a lot of us have a driveway, but we have to park on the street, and just the parking, in town is limited. Any suggestions? I know I don't leave any valuables. I even leave my car doors unlocked, hoping that they will just open it versus busting the window. just any advice or anything we could take away.
Yeah, so this crew that's hitting us right now is not typical. I think what you're doing is correct. Don't leave anything in the car. What we see out of most of our car break-ins are, it's a crime of opportunity. They see a book bag, they see laptops. I mean, we even had firearms just, sitting in the open, and that's what they're looking for. So this is really not typical in what we see. So obviously, if you have a camera at your house, that's not going to prevent anything, but it does greatly increase our opportunities to catch these people. But I would say keep doing what you're doing. Keep your vehicle clean. Hopefully it's well lit where you have to park when you do park on the street. But outside of what we're seeing right now, like I said, this is not typical, and hopefully we're able to make an arrest on this in short order.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone here from Zone 2?
Yes, Major Senzer here from Zone 2. Can you hear me?
Senzer, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Yeah, I'm Andrew Senzer. I'm your Zone 2 major. Yeah, I know Pete Malecki's report out was a little bit of a bummer, but I've got some good news to report, and it's not just for Zone 2, but this affects all the other zones as well. And we'll keep it on the subject of car break-ins. So just a little bit ago, back on the 9th of this month, 2115 Piedmont, the Optimist loss were hit, and we had upwards of somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 cars broken into in one incident by the same crew. Those individuals later committed an aggravated assault on Howell Mill, where they pointed a pistol at a woman who was driving down Howell Mill. And later on that day, those occupants of that car, at least one of them, was involved in a robbery. The main person is 17. I'm not going to get into all the details because the investigation is still open right now. Just turned 17. We got great video from the apartment complex, fantastic video. We were able to identify the vehicle. We were able to identify the clothing that some of the individuals were wearing, and which put them at other locations, during their one-day rampage as well. So in the end, we were able to take out probably somewhere over 35 warrants for one of the individuals. Another individual was arrested for the aggravated assault as well, because these individuals were acting in concert with each other and have known ties to one of the local gangs, if you want to call it. We were able to apply the gang statute on all of those charges, and the judge gave no bond on that individual. So, but that didn't come easily. And when I say it didn't come easily, there are some things that we have to do on our end to make sure that the officers are doing the best job that they can, documenting whether or not the locations have cameras and collecting other physical evidence. And then we have to make sure that our primary investigative unit, our auto theft unit, which is now centralized, is working with the gang unit. And we're also looping in the DA's office to make sure that we're dropping these gang statutes along with the other warrants at the same time. So this can all work out the way it did. So it's a little bit of extra effort on our part, extra vigilance, due diligence, if you will. But I think that this is, when we do get good evidence, and Captain Malecki stated that, cameras, lighting, all that stuff absolutely does help on the back end. So it's really hard to prevent these crews from going and doing this. This is their job. This is what they do. We just have to find a way to keep them in jail. That's basically it. We got to catch them and we got to keep them in jail. So You know, a lot of that comes back around on making sure that we're doing our due diligence on the back end, making sure that all these entities are looped in, and know where we are with this investigation and know how serious it is in the context of what's happening. So that's good news on that for the car break-ins, and that, by the way, affects multiple zones. We also saw a spike in burglaries of storage units within the past month. We tend to see that around the holiday time. We had a location on Monroe, I think it was 2033 Monroe, where we got a report that witnesses saw some individuals breaking into a storage unit. Our officers were able to get there very quickly, establish a really good perimeter, and at the end of the incident, we were able to get 4 individuals in custody. All had criminal records. One was already somebody who was on our radar for committing these burglaries in multiple locations. So these were 2 really good arrests that you know, impacts multiple zones, especially zone 2 and our neighboring zones. So I just wanted to start off by, you know, touching on some of the accomplishments that we did. And it's unfortunately, there are so many crews that are running around doing this. So when we get one, there's another one kind of in the hopper waiting to take over. But like I said, we just have to do a better job finding them and putting them in jail. You know, that has a lot to do with how we're working with our DA and really how the courts are handling these cases as well. So that's it really. You know, beginning of the year, like I said, we finished off the year, I think, as a city really well. We were down a percentage point. Zone 2 was down 8% in overall Part 1 crimes. We did some really good things this year that we're going to continue into next year. Something that also touches close to NPU F is where our bike team is operating in the Lindbergh-Morosco area. We were able to impact crime significantly there. Their 6 months of deployment, they dropped crime by about 32%, and also dealt with a lot of the quality of life issues in that space. So that's not going anywhere, and we're going to continue to do that, and hopefully we can replicate that in other areas when we get more resources. So any questions?
If you have a question for Major Senzer, please raise your hand. You can find the raise your hand function under the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, well, I put my email in the chat box, so if anybody has any questions that they think of later on, you know, please feel free to email me. You know, you don't have to wait till the next NPU meeting to get in touch with me. Just shoot me an email and I'll get back with you as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Captain Smith is also here. Did you have anything to add?
No, ma'am, I did not. Major Senzer did a great job covering everything for Zone 2. And again, my email is also in the chat box, so feel free to email me also, and we'll help in any way we can. Thank you, everybody.
Great, thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, there are no other comments or questions, we'll move on to Atlanta Fire Rescue. Is Captain Lessington here? Or anyone from Atlanta Fire? Okay. Are there any other representatives from the city of Atlanta that are here and have a brief report that they'd like to make? I don't see any hands raised and I don't hear any voices. So we are going to move on to comments from elected officials. I am very pleased to welcome Council Member Alex Wan to the NPU meeting. Alex, glad to have you back.
say welcome back. It's great to be back. It's good to see some familiar faces, and I'm looking forward to continuing the great work of NPUF for these next 4 years. Before I share with you what I wanted to share tonight, I also did want to acknowledge Dan O'Toole, who's with Council Member Keisha Waite's office. She's post 3 at large. So if you remember Andre, it was Andre Dickens' former seat. So he may have some things to add from her office as well, but you've got 2 folks on here that are receiving all this information, and we'll take it back to our second council meeting, which is tomorrow. If you didn't get my newsletter that we sent out, I guess it was last week now, just wanted to share with you, the committees I've been appointed to for this year are transportation, which will be good because I can follow the Renew Atlanta and T-Splosh, specifically the Monroe Drive project this year. City utilities, and that'll be good because we got to talk about solid waste and both the challenges that our neighborhoods still are facing in terms of pickup, but then also there's talk right now about revisiting the solid waste rates that we pay every year. And then finally, finance exec. I was lucky enough to be appointed chair of that. So we'll be definitely watching the budget and procurement, hopefully trying to speed that up so that we can get the city moving again. Second, just quick announcement, Lance Orchid, who many of y'all worked with in Jennifer Ide's office for the last 4 years, has graciously agreed to stay on as my chief of staff for the next 4 years, hopefully. I would just ask that I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. Just send everything to me at my city council address. Lance and I have figured out a system that we're both triaging those and we'll address them as quickly as we can. And if he can handle that, he will with the departments right away. So the 2 things I did want to mention of particular interest to NPUF. The first one is the Cheshire Bridge, the actual bridge itself. I know there's been some talk going around and frustration, which I share about why it's taking so long. I did have a briefing with Commissioner Rowan of Atlanta DOT this past Wednesday morning. Was relieved to hear and confirm that indeed there was an emergency procurement that was approved by the last city council on their way out. That is out, that RFP is out. Responses are due by the end of the month, I think 1st of February. The good news about an emergency procurement is that it does not need to retrace the legislative route. Doesn't have to come back through council. That usually adds another 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum on that. So as soon as they can make a decision and go, they will. So I'm going to stay on that. Commissioner Rowan has committed to sticking with me and letting me bug him every 2 weeks to find out what's going on and then helping accelerate that as appropriate. While I'm on that topic, one of the things I'm going to try and do, I promised Piedmont Heights I would do this. We just haven't been able to coordinate yet in the first couple of weeks, is to convene a meeting between ADOT, GDOT, and Atlanta Gas. These 3 projects that are really wreaking havoc in our neighborhoods, the roundabouts that they're installing for the Beaver Highway Connector, the Cheshire Bridge being out, and then also the Atlanta Gas line replacement up and down Piedmont. Just haven't had really good, I don't feel, information for the community. And quite frankly, coordination, it's painful, but I do think that if we can find ways to make it less painful for us by simple coordination, by all means, let's try and do that. Second thing I wanted to bring up was Octopus Kitchen. Obviously, that came up a couple months ago with 500 some odd people on this call. I was able to confirm that the mayor's office on December 6th, so this would have been under Mayor Bottoms, did receive all the supporting documentation that's required to deem the application complete and ready for consideration from the mayor. At that point, the mayor has 60 days in which to act. On the 61st day, if there is no action taken, the recommendation of the License Review Board, which was to approve, takes effect by default. Mayor Bottoms did not act on it on her way out, which means it is sitting now on Mayor Dickens' desk. I did mention this to him during our one-on-one briefing during the transition, so he is aware of it. And I think at this point, our shot is simply for the community to reach out to Mayor Dickens and share your feelings about why the NPU took the position it took and recommended denial. Ben Nemo, the president of MLPA, it's president at mlpa.org. I think it was in the MLPA newsletter that just went out. So recommending just kind of using some of the language that you've seen already that was part of the previous email campaign. And then there may be some other things you can add as well. So I don't want to go too much into that. I think it's best for y'all to coordinate with Ben and MLPA. And I saw Bill Compton on the call earlier with Piedmont Heights to make sure that we get our voices heard. I'll be honest, I think it's a 50-50 shot at best, but it's not done yet. So why not continue trying? On that note, and I'll be happy to take any questions, or I don't know if Mr. O'Toole wants to say anything. Tomorrow in Committee on Council, I did introduce a personal paper the first day of inauguration, our meeting. I'm trying to get appointed to ATAG 3 as a council member appointee and essentially take the spot that Jennifer Ide had. ATAG is the group that was formed by the city to review and make recommendations on the alcohol code. So I'm trying to insert myself into that process as quickly as possible and start getting movement on the reforms that we've been asking for and hoping for a long time. So Debbie, I don't know if you want to see if there's any comments from Council Member Waite's office, but I'm happy to take questions at the appropriate time.
Why don't we take questions to you first, and then
Okay.
I'll open the floor to Mr. O'Toole.
Very good.
Kay, did I see your hand up?
I think she was just
No, I was clapping.
Sorry. Okay.
talking about ATAG. I saw her
Yeah,
go up. With them into
absolutely.
ATAG.
Yeah. Good luck. I do have a question about Octopus Kitchen.
Okay.
They were operating with a temporary license that I believe expired in November. Are
I
they?
think my understanding was it expired January 15th.
Okay.
That was the information that I had been given, but I can confirm that.
No. So what happens then do you know?
They should not be operating or serving once that expires. And, again, we're in that period before February 5th, where the mayor should be acting on their regular license application. So I would say if we see any activity over there, let me know, and I'll be happy to pass it along to the folks. Yeah, Mary Graham said, my understanding is they have a sign on their door that says they're not serving because they have staffing issues, or they're not operating, I should say, because of staffing issues right now. But if anybody sees anything, let me know. I'm just asleep at the time that they're going. I mean, they're just down the street from me, but I'm well in bed at that point.
Anyone else have any questions? I don't see any other hands raised.
Wow. See, first meeting of the year. It's always smart to come to this one.
Yeah, we're saving our questions for the next month. Great, thank you. Thank you. Dan O'Toole, do you have anything you want to share from Councilmember Waite's office?
Yeah, I just want to jump in and introduce myself. My name is Dan O'Toole. I'm Chief of Staff for Keisha Waits, who, as Alex said, took over Andre Dickens' citywide seat. Keisha couldn't be here right now, but I'm going to be attending as many of your meetings as I can. So if you have questions that need to get to her, send them to me or directly to her. I'm still being onboarded, so I don't have a email address or phone number yet, a city one, but you can still reach Keisha at her normal email address, which is, well, I'll put it in the chat, but it's the regular citywide one. And then that's it. One of the things that came up over the past couple months has been kind of a lack of responsiveness, or at least the perception of that from certain areas of town. And you guys are in very good hands, in Alex's hands there. I know he's extremely responsive to constituent stuff, but and so is Keisha. When she was in the General Assembly, constituent services was one of her key priorities. So I think you're in very good hands with the new city council. And, I'm here. If you've got questions, reach out to me anytime as soon as I have contact info. And if not, send it to Keisha.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Dan?
Also, real quick, I have to jump off. I do have a scheduling conflict today. That was my other call. But future meetings, I should be here most of it.
Great, thank you. All right. If we have any questions, we'll get them to you through Keisha's email address. Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or their representatives that have a presentation? I didn't see State Rep Evans or Olivia.
Sorry, I also couldn't figure out the hand thing, and I should by now. Oh, right here. Okay, well, I have my hand up now. I'm Kennedy McClung. I just want to introduce myself. I'm the new Chief of Staff for Representative Stacey Evans. And just wanted to hop on here and introduce myself. I'll be replacing Olivia. She is off to the lobbying side, so she's still at the Capitol, still in politics. So you can definitely still reach out to her if need be. But I'm going to put my information in the chat and just wanted to introduce myself because I will be the one attending the meetings from here on out. And as far as updates, there's not really much to share. It's been a pretty slow week other than the dog's victory. So we love that. And Governor gave his State of the State speech last week. So we are adjourned this week, and next Monday we'll start we'll start session again, and we'll be having more regular updates for you guys.
Great, thank you. Okay, let me open the floor. Any questions for Kennedy? Don't see any. Anybody else here that is an elected official or a representative from their staff? I don't see any hands raised. So we are going to move to the consent agenda. That I did place that in the chat shortly after the beginning of the meeting. There are 6 items on the consent agenda. Let me go through them and then I'll ask some questions. The first is V21-322, 1330 North Highland Avenue. The applicant seeking a variance from the zoning regulation to reduce the required front yard setback from 35 feet to 23.56 feet in order to construct a second-story addition to an existing single-family residence. This the recommendation from MLPA is approval. The second variance is V21-332, 688 Yorkshire Road. The applicant seeking a variance to reduce the west side yard setback from 7 feet to 0.5 feet for a garage. The east side yard setback from 7 feet to 3.6 feet. The rear yard setback from 15 feet to 2.7 feet. And that's also the garage, and to increase the maximum lot coverage from 50% to 57.7%. This parcel is also in Morningside, and they are recommending deferral. We also have 4 special events. The first is Shatterproof Rise Against Addiction, which is a Class E event in Piedmont Park, November 5th, 2022. 1,200 participants are expected. Second is Rescue Dog Games. This is also a Class C event in Piedmont Park, October 22nd, 2022, with 1,500 participants. The next is Piedmont Park Summer Arts Festival, which is also a Class C event, 1,999 participants exactly, in Piedmont Park, August 20 to 21 in 2022. And the last is the Families First Unity for a Difference Balloon Race, which is in Piedmont Park, October 15th, 2022. The recommendation is to approve each of these. NPU F approves on consent agenda most Class E events, which are under 2,000 participants regularly because of the low impacts to neighbors. First of all, I want to check to see if the applicants are present. Is the applicant present for V21-322?
Yes, I'm here, Sheena Stone.
Thank you, Sheena. Is the applicant present from Shatterproof Rise Against Addiction?
Yes, Eileen.
Thank you. Rescue Dog Games, Jill Waldell, I think I saw your name.
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you.
Great, thanks. The Piedmont Park Summer Arts Festival, is the applicant present, Randall Fox? Okay. I don't see or hear Randall. And the last is Families First Unity for a Difference Balloon Race. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. City ordinance requires that special events applicants be present at the NPU. So I'm going to remove the Piedmont Park Summer Arts Festival from the consent agenda. Is there anyone here who wants to have an application removed, any other applications removed from the consent agenda so that it can be discussed in the regular place on the agenda? Just call out if you have an objection. Okay, Terrell, I do see your hand raised. We'll get to you in a second. Is there an applicant here who wants to have their application discussed at this meeting? The Park Tavern Spring Series will be discussed after we complete the consent agenda. We haven't forgotten about you. And is there anyone here who's in opposition to any of these recommendations? Okay, I don't see or hear anyone. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I am opposed to. I wanted to discuss one of them.
Which one did you want to discuss?
I didn't catch the address, but it's the one that's increasing the amount of impervious surface.
The Yorkshire property?
If that was it.
Yeah, the recommendation for that one is to defer. So we won't have any discussion
Okay.
on that. Okay, Howard?
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda, removing the Piedmont Park Summer Arts Festival?
So moved.
Thank you, Kay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, I was going to do this by unanimous consent, but some folks are having a hard time finding the reactions, the raise your hand function. So we're going to practice. Please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion to adopt the consent agenda, keeping in mind that if you're opposed to any item on the consent agenda, it will invalidate your vote. And we'll have to invalidate the consent agenda, and we'll have to go through these individually. Okay, can everyone find the reactions tab and the raise your hand function? Has everyone voted that wants to vote? I don't see any other hands raised, so 18 ayes. Now you lower your hand using the same function. Okay, who else? Okay, everybody's hands down. Are there any nays? I don't see any nays. We don't do abstentions in NPUF. By a vote of 18 ayes and 0 nays, the consent agenda has been adopted. Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the Park Tavern Spring Series. Is the applicant present? Oh, present? Terrell, are you here to discuss that?
Yep, I'm here to represent Park Tavern.
Great, thank you. This is a gated event to be held in March with 1,500 participants. This event's been held for several years. So do you want to just give us the highlights and anything that may be changing and anything you're doing for COVID protocols?
In terms of anything that's changing, it is the same event that we've had for over 10 years now. It is our annual spring festival. The large majority of the event would take place inside of Park Tavern, with the small part that takes place outside of Park Tavern on the Park Tavern side of the cart path. What we end up doing is actually putting up a fence line on the cart path side of Park Tavern. But that does not go up until the event starts, so there's no impact into the park. In terms of COVID, we're going to have all COVID protocols in place in terms of hand sanitizer, things like that. People wearing masks. We actually do ask people to wear masks when they're not drinking or eating and things like that. But again, for this permit, the large portion of it is going to be outside in the park. So the 1,500 people will be outside, where they'll be kind of spread out and socially distanced. Again, this is an annual event that we do. And this is over 10 years of us doing this event. It's over 2 different weekends. So it's pretty much the exact same thing each weekend. There'll be porta potties that will be in our parking lot that is managed by Park Tavern, that is owned by the Atlanta Beltline. So people will be able to go up there. We will have off-duty APD officers who will help with traffic. But what we found out over the number of years is that most of our people coming are doing Uber or walking the Beltline. So we don't have a lot of parking traffic that's impacted on that corner.
Okay, any questions for Terrell on the Park Tavern Spring Series to be held in March? I don't see any hands raised. Is there a motion?
Motion to support.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Jane Rawlings.
Oh, thanks, Jane. Okay, any question about the motion to support the Park Tavern Spring Series? Seeing or hearing none. I will ask if there is anyone that objects to the motion. If not, we will adopt by unanimous consent. I don't see anyone objecting. The motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the Piedmont Park Summer Arts Festival. As we heard, the applicant was not present. Is there a motion for how we want to handle this application? You can either deny it or defer it.
Let's defer. Motion to defer.
I'll second that.
Okay. Rich. Any questions or comments about the motion to defer the Piedmont Park Summer Arts Festival? If not, does anyone object to the deferral? Seeing or hearing none, the motion carries by unanimous consent. And that takes us through the special events section. We're now at the license review board application. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jane Rawlings, who is our alcohol licensing permits chair. Jane?
Thanks, Debbie. We have one application on the agenda tonight, and I did see Ms. Thompson from Sardin left, and I also saw the agent, Antonio Dalton. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is an application for CDS Pharmacy located in Ansley Mall at 1544 Piedmont Avenue. It is an application for a change of agent for a retail package license to sell beer and wine. They're exempt from distance requirements. There's no history of alcohol denials, suspensions, or revocations at this location. NPUF has received no complaints regarding operations at this location. Piedmont Heights Civic Association had no concerns. And so let me turn it over to Ms. Thompson, see if she has anything more she wants to add, and then I'll make a recommendation on the application.
Great, thank you, Jane. As Jane mentioned, Altonio Dalton will be the new agent. He has over 12 years of experience in the retail industry, and he did previously hold an alcohol license for another business, not CVS, but it was a application or a license in the city of Conyers, Georgia, and no history of violations when he did hold that license for another business. He's been at this store for 5 months, and CVS policy is to card everyone, or Altonio's policy is to card everyone who's purchasing alcohol, cough syrup, and other medications. So we're happy to answer any questions you guys have.
And Debbie and Kay, if you all don't see any questions, then I would make a motion to approve this application.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. So a motion's been made by Jane and seconded by Kay to approve the LRB application to CVS Pharmacy number 4747. Are there any questions or comments? Bill Compton, your hand is raised. Do you have a question or comment?
Sorry, I was jumping and voting. No issue.
Okay. Anyone else? I don't see any other hands raised. If you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Now that you have all found the reactions tab in the raise hand function. And you've gotten good at it. Okay. Okay, I see 17 ayes. If you can lower your hands. Let's get down to 0. Bill, lower your hand. Are there any nays? I'm seeing no hands raised. Going, gone. The motion carries by a vote of 17 ayes, 0 nays, and that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here tonight. Okay, we have done most of the variance applications except for here we go. V21 299 626 East Morningside Drive Northeast. This one did not make it to the consent agenda. I didn't receive notice until mid-morning that the applicant had a death in his immediate family, and they asked to defer this application until next month. Is there any objection to deferring the application to February? Speak up or raise your hand. I see none. The application will be deferred until next month. Thank you. And that is it for voting matters. The next item on our agenda is presentations. Kay, do you want to set up the presentation why Judy Yee was invited?
Sure.
Thank you.
So as some of you will recall, in November, we were asked to support a letter from one of the community groups who had developed an alternate proposal for the tree protection ordinance. We had quite a discussion about that, and a motion was made that rather than sign on to one proposal or another, that we would encourage city council and the mayor and the Parks Department and whatnot to a planning department to support whatever Trees Atlanta was recommending, that they are really the authority in our city with regard to protecting the tree canopy. However, as we discussed that and tried to formulate a motion, it became clear that we weren't actually able to articulate what Trees Atlanta's position is with regard to the tree protection ordinance. So we have invited Judy Yee from Trees Atlanta to come and talk to us about that tonight. That's what she's going to do. And we hope that coming out of this, we can then either write a letter or make a resolution for council to move forward on the tree protection ordinance.
Okay, Kay. I don't have a formal presentation. I'm really here to give you guys an overview of what's happened so far and hopefully just answer questions. One thing is clear, there has been a long pause during the election where progress on the tree protection ordinance came to a complete stop. Not that it was rapidly going toward anything very fast before that anyway. So what we do know so far is that prior to the pause in reviewing the tree protection ordinance, the city had yet another version or papers that they were working on. So where we left it before the end of the year was that the committee, including Matt Westmoreland, they were reviewing the language of the tree protection ordinance as the city last wrote it, their draft. That was the draft that that they had been reviewing and looking over. And there has not yet been one that's been presented for a vote. There is, as Kay mentioned, there is another version that was written and submitted to council. I think council member who I forget who submitted it for vote, but that was not brought up to vote either. So the question is a good one, Kay. You know, there is not a version that we are endorsing per se, because we haven't seen any final language. You know, where we're standing is that we've given guidance to the city that what we would like to see in the final language of the tree protection ordinance. But we haven't seen a final draft. The city never provided a final draft. And so there's really, you know, in that regard, there's nothing for us to say we would vote for it or against it at this point. I know that's frustrating. So one of the things that we did at the end of the year was send to the CDHS committee, who is responsible for getting a tree protection ordinance written, was to say, hey, if you can't rewrite a new ordinance, we have 4 priorities that we would like for you guys to consider. So at least consider these immediate changes, and then we can work towards some kind of process to write an entirely new tree protection ordinance. And the 4 priorities that we sent to them was go ahead and adjust the recompense value. One of the things that they did do during the first couple of years that we've been working on it is do a fee assessment. And they clearly said that the true cost of replacing a tree was much higher than what the city has been charging. The current ordinance says, you know, for each tree removed that requires recompense is $100 per tree plus $30 per DBH inch. The city themselves said the true cost is more like $240 per inch. So we said, why don't you go ahead and just adjust the recompense value? That would be a quick fix. The other one we said was that we think that part of the process of maintaining or managing these tree removal permits that made it unnecessarily more complex was that public trees was managed through Department of Parks and private trees was managed through the city planning. And one of the proposals that they had brought forth was that they would consolidate the permitting process for public and private trees. We agreed that that would probably be a good move to go ahead and do that. Along with that is also adjust how public trees had to be replaced. Currently, there's a rule called inch per inch. What that means is instead of being allowed to pay for trees removed on public land with dollar value recompense, the city was required to replant every single inch that they removed. What was happening, according to a lot of council members, was that large public works projects were being held back because they could not find locations to replant trees inch per inch. And it was actually putting a higher economic burden on the city than public work, other private constructions. So we agreed that it would make it functional for all trees to be guided by the same rule, which is like how private trees are being guided. So we said, go ahead and do that. Those were the two major ordinance changes. We said, let's go ahead and make those changes really quick if we can't make progress on a rewrite. And the other two changes, which were procedural or administrative change that we recommended that they do right now, which doesn't even require a ordinance change, is go ahead and start writing the urban master plan. There's some new language in the proposed ordinance that articulates what a urban master plan, forest master plan would look like. But we said in the current ordinance, it allows for that. So go ahead and start writing that, at least doing the research to hire the right people and finding the right stakeholders to start writing that urban forest master plan. So we said, go ahead and do that from an administrative standpoint. And then the second request that we made is go ahead and clarify all your SOPs or standard operating procedures. One of the major pain points of the current ordinance is that how they enforce it and how they are able to give public guidance is that there was a lack of standard operating procedures. That does not require a rewrite of the ordinance. That's just get it written, publish it, and share it with the public so that there's clear standard operating procedures. So we made two recommendations to the city. As I noted, the recompense value and consolidating the permitting process. Those would require ordinance amendments. And the other two is just an administrative or a leadership decision to get started. So that's where we left it at the end of the year. One of the things that we do know now that we do have half of the city council is entirely new. On the CDHS committee, half of the, I think there's 7 members of that committee. The 3 that are returning were already serving on that particular committee. The 4 new committee members are entirely new to the city council, which means it gives us an opportunity to bring them up to speed, brief them, and answer their questions and do all of the things that we need to so that they're well informed, at least on the technicalities. We know that Mayor Dickens has already expressed that working on the ordinance issues is a priority for him. So that's also a good sign. So as the players take their seats in their new roles, we're already trying to make time to get on their calendar so we can give them a briefing on the history of where we've been and where we would like to go. And that's really where we are today. So with that, I'll be glad to, yeah, Alex, we actually had I see Alex points out who's the chair, which is Jason Dozier of District 4. So we had a meeting scheduled with him, but it had to be rescheduled already. So we are rapidly trying to meet with the right people so we can have that conversation. So with all of that, I know that it's not as specific as I wish I could be, or we all wish I could be, but I can answer any other questions. Kay, you can tell me which questions I should take. You're on mute.
Holly Sassnett had her hand up first, so let's start with her.
Oh, okay, thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. And thank you for your presentation, Judy. My question actually goes to Kay. Kay, my recollection of that November meeting, I think we need to look at the minutes because we acknowledged that Trees Atlanta was an expert, and we decided, I thought, for Debbie to write a letter to the city council stating that we were not going to sign the citizens blend draft at that time, but that we wanted the city council to know that we did not want to approve any of the other options as well. We did not state that we would go with whatever Trees Atlanta presented, to my knowledge, but I think we should look at the minutes, and perhaps Rich Sussman could also talk, because he and I had comments that night.
Holly, I agree with you. We did not say that we were going to go with whatever Trees Atlanta said.
Okay.
What we concluded was that we didn't know enough about Trees Atlanta's position, and that's why we invited someone to come speak to us.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said at the beginning then.
And I'll let Debbie respond. I don't recall if we actually had a motion and a vote for Debbie to write a letter. I do remember us having some conversation along those lines. I just don't remember where we ended up.
Thank you.
And I've gone blank on the motion itself. But at that time, Councilmember Westmoreland indicated that both versions were going to be filed at the end of the year.
And it did happen, and we were wondering what that was about too, because there was a motion to do an emergency or special meeting on the 20th of December, which technically was the first day of their recess. And so we were a little confused on what that was about. And from our understanding, it was a procedural move in order to keep the ordinance live for some consideration. That might be inside baseball that Alex can explain, but it really didn't really affect the process of anything as far as I know. Alex, can you add some color on that?
Yeah, at the end of the 4-year term, all legislation essentially is done. It's over. So anything that happens has to be reintroduced with the new council. So the filing, I think, was just a procedural thing. The December 20th meeting, they had hoped to bring in the tree ordinance, but ran out of time. That one was largely for, it was either the bond issuance or for the T-Splosh list.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Rich Sussman?
I think Catherine is there before me.
Oh, okay.
Her hand up before me.
Sorry. Catherine Cole?
Catherine, you're muted.
Yep, sorry about that. Thank you. As some of you may know, I have been working very closely with a lot of folks with the interest of doing a little bit better tree protection ordinance for City of Atlanta for quite some time. And in fact, I was on the task force for the last tree protection ordinance back in like 2003, 2004. So I've been following this very closely with some other folks, and am one of a number of authors or the citizens blended or amended draft, which takes into consideration a lot of the comments that Trees Atlanta and other groups have made. And so we invite everybody to look very closely at that draft. Both drafts were in final form. So we do have 2 drafts in final form at council. And the draft that the planning department submitted, we think has a lot of problems. And so what we did is we took the planning department draft and we edited it. A lot of things that the planning department submitted or make sense and they're kind of good, but there's a lot of real serious problems with that draft, including the removal of the appeals process for single family residential for the most part. Tree save mechanism that doesn't really work. They actually had one that worked, but then they undercut it with another one. There's a lot of things in here. I'm going to touch on just a couple of the points that Judy raised. One of those was the recompense fees. And so it's great that they have a better recompense fee that actually does reflect the cost of replacing trees. That was one of the goals. However, it's really important that we all understand in the planning department draft, they made a lot of exemptions to that, so that in fact, in the draft that the planning department submitted that could be voted on by council, you know, at the next time they vote on this, it's been submitted, it's in final form. And that draft gives either a 62, 63%, or a 75% reduction in recompense fee. That's in their draft. So they had this really great new recompense, and then they undercut it so that nobody really has to pay it. In terms of replanting trees is, you know, we need to do that when it's appropriate. But the planning department draft says that you don't necessarily have to, first of all, you are reduced in all these ways that you have to replant trees, so you can reduce your replanting by 75%. So you don't have to replant that many trees. And furthermore, they allow replanting of trees on private property where no one monitors it. There is no way to see if those trees are even standing 1 year later. We think that's a really big mistake.
Catherine,
There's some other things.
Catherine, can I stop you for a minute? The purpose of the presentation today from Trees Atlanta was to better understand what their position was. We've already had a briefing from the Citizens Blended side, but currently we don't have anything in front of us to approve, and we don't, as Judy said, there are no final drafts.
Well, that's actually not correct. There are 2 final drafts. That's true.
There is nothing in front of council right now or for this NPU to vote on. So I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments without going into any more in-depth detail. We don't have the time this evening to debate the differences between those 2 drafts. We've already done that in previous meetings. And until we get something in front of us that's
right.
final, then I think we can have a robust conversation.
Okay, so here's what I would just like to make a statement. There are 2 final drafts. They are available for people to see. I'll put it in the chat. If you want to see our draft, it's at cityintheforest.org. If you want to see the proposed planning department draft, that link to that draft is also at cityintheforest.org. I think the discussion, it's very important to get the facts and to get exactly how these 2 different drafts would work. And we would be very happy to do taking folks out into the field, looking at site plans in your neighborhood, in any neighborhood, and show exactly how the 2 drafts would work. And I'll go ahead and I'll put my number and the City in the Forest URL in the chat, and I invite everyone to learn more about the drafts that are on the table.
Thank you. Rich Sussman, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Just a couple comments. Yeah, Holly's right. The purpose of bringing Trees Atlanta here today was to find out what their view is on the tree ordinance. Catherine makes some very good points. Judy makes some very good points. I think we have to take something in consideration. I don't think we have to vote on anything this evening. One thing is, this has been going on for a long time. And the present tree ordinance, which many of us are dissatisfied with, is still in force. I think one thing we have to think about is, and this is whenever legislation occurs, is you ask for a lot, and if you want to get it passed, you may not be able to get everything. And so there are what important points, what are probably what are the highest priorities that perhaps council can accept that we can get a new tree ordinance. We probably won't be able to get everything. I think we'll be here for the next 10 years arguing over this. But as Trees Atlanta said, and maybe those 2 priorities are 2 most important things, and the other things, maybe those 4 items are the only ones that get passed. I'm not sure. But I think we should think about that very closely as we move forward with the tree ordinance. Catherine, we could be here in 2023. I could be 88 years old and we'll still be debating this. I'm like, that's 12 years. So I think we have to think about that very, very closely as we continue this discussion.
Just to build on that statement, one of the things that we realized, that I'm sure anyone who's been involved in the process over the last years and in the earlier cycles too, is that that the ordinance.
Chair, point of order. May I ask the chair to exercise the decorum that she stated that she normally does and call on folks in order of their hand being raised and enforce the two speaker, not two speaker, or 3 or 4 times speaking on a topic? That would be helpful.
Well, Judy is the presenter, so I'm going to allow her to finish her comments from the, and then we'll finish with the hands that are raised and move on. But thanks, Jack.
So the quick comment that I want to lift up from Rich's comment is that one of the things that we realized was that enforcement obviously is a critical part of any ordinance that get passed. So we spent a lot of time looking at how can we better ensure that the city has the capacity to actually enforce whatever we pass, because we can pass new language, and if it doesn't get enforced, that seems to be the real issue. Some people even say that the city of Atlanta's ordinance is pretty strong as is, and it is actually. It's just that enforcement has become an issue. So one of the things that we are carefully looking at when we review any of the proposals and language that come our way is that what are the logistical plans for the city to actually get it enforced, and what kind of capacity are they going to build? So that's all.
Great, thanks, Judy. Jack, your hand is raised. Did you have a comment that you wanted to make? Or was that your point?
I have a procedural comment. This entire discussion, which many parts of which are interesting, most of which we covered when Howard Katzman presented and on other occasions, should have been, in my view, go through the way the NPU does business. Should go through Rich Sussman's committee. And we shouldn't be having a committee meeting in the middle of this discussion. And I would appreciate it for the future discussions, if per your suggestion, that we have an actual material in front of us before the meeting starts, that it go through the committee, that it come with a recommendation, and that if there's not a recommendation, that we allot a few minutes, a determined time, to have a summary update, and that we not just endlessly repeat the kind of discussion that's been held about 24 times in the last 3 years at various subcommittees and committees of council and in NPU. I move to table the motion and end the discussion, Madam Chair.
Jack, this is a presentation. This is not a discussion of the issue, and I'm trying to keep it within that format. So what I'd like to do, we have 2 more hands that are raised. Kay, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, first, in response to Jack, this presentation was requested by Rich and his committee. So that's why it's happening. And also to the earlier comments, I went back and did look at the November minutes. Several things happened. One, we had a motion not to support the Citizens Blended Tree Protection Ordinance. And that motion passed with 14 yays and 5 nays. And that was largely, I believe, because we were quite divided, not so much on the draft, but on the letter and some of the language in the letter that some members were not comfortable with. Rich then proposed an alternate motion to not support the planning department's draft. And the action that we took was a motion to send a letter to City Council that was made by Rich, and that passed with 19 yays and 0 nays. So that's what we did in November. I don't think that letter has happened. I don't know who was actually going to draft that letter. It doesn't say in the minutes.
Thank you. Howard Katzman, do you have a brief comment?
Yes. Thank you, Judy, for your presentation tonight. And I believe I just heard you say that the current ordinance is strongly worded. And I'm very perplexed to hear that comment. Are you aware that there is effectively no tree protection for single family development? And that in a neighborhood like Morningside, the trees are coming down left and right, that it's a regular process to take trees down? I'm thinking you're not really aware of what's going on in the city when you make a statement like that.
Thank you, Howard.
I'm not sure how you want me to address that. I mean, I'm not gonna, I think we, the thing is, one of the statements that we would like to make is that we are all trying to make sure that our canopy is protected. How we do it, there's multiple ways to get there. We really do want to make sure that we end up with any ordinance that protects our trees better. We are not, one of the things that we will not engage in is one is wrong and one is right. There has to be single language that the council is going to review. They are not going to entertain and reconsolidate multiple language based upon this or that. So what they're going to do, what they have created or written within their own team is a draft. And what we're trying to do is try to strengthen that language of that draft as closely to the aspirations that everyone here wants to achieve. So it's not a matter of one thing is wrong or right. We are purely trying to represent the interests of the community and try to deliver better canopy protection for everyone.
Great. And with that last comment, I'm going to close discussion and we will move on to the next item on our agenda. Thank you, Judy, for being here.
You're
And
welcome.
appreciate hearing Trees Atlanta's point of view.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last items on our agenda. Planners report. Doug, I almost forgot you again.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate it. My name is Doug Young. I'm with a staff member with the Department of City Planning. My day job is to run the city's historic preservation review programs. Today here, I'm serving as NPU F City Planner, and I have a couple quick announcements from our monthly report. Let me bring that up real quick. So the NPU University kicks off its 2022 class sessions with 4 different tracks in a community planner certificate program. The courses are free and open to the public. More than 1,800 of you all took classes in 2021, and we'll look forward to seeing you more this year. The schedule and whatnot will be published soon for the 2022 calendar year. In addition, the executive summary of Atlanta's comprehensive plan called Plan A is now available on the city's website. If you visit atlcitydesign.com, you can read that summary today. And then physical copies will be available in the public libraries later this month. And then lastly, something that's near and dear to my heart is the nominations are now open for the 2022 Design Awards. The Design Awards are an opportunity for the public to nominate a project, place, program, or person that is making Atlanta a better place to live, work, and play. This is managed by the Office of Design's Historic Preservation staff and is awarded by the Urban Design Commission and the NPUs. The nominations are due by Monday, February 28th, so about a week and a half from today by 4 o'clock. And I will put the information in the chat about you can learn more about the nomination process and actually submit a nomination yourself.
And Doug, does that include the NPU awards?
Yes, it does. It includes the Design Awards, includes the Awards of Excellence and the Community Design Awards, and both of them are linked in the same location.
And when will the NPU vote on?
Likely in April.
Okay.
We are targeting a May event this year, as we always have tried to do in the past.
I won't even ask if that's going to be in person. Any questions?
I won't hazard a guess either. It's bad luck.
I think so. Any questions to Doug, our esteemed planner? Okay, I don't see any, Doug. Thank you.
Sure enough.
Okay, neighborhood and committee reports. Linda Martin Manor, do you have a report? Anything new and exciting going on?
No, we're just freezing up here in Lindridge Martin Manor.
Have you selected a president for 2020?
Yeah, Peyton Bell, we had, I believe I did report in December that we did, Peyton is our president. You know, senior moment here.
For me too, otherwise I would remember.
Okay, but it was basically the folks who had been serving last time. We had some interim folks And they stepped up in the middle of the year, and those folks were voted in. We do have a new secretary, Catherine, I can't remember her last name. Missy Funderburk is our treasurer, and I can't remember our vice president's name, but who lives on the corner will kill me.
Rodrigo,
Yeah,
Rodriguez,
yeah,
Beatrice.
that's it.
Great, thank you. Piedmont Heights, Bill, what's up in Piedmont Heights?
Hi, Debbie. Piedmont Heights did conduct their January board meeting. We did elect new officers. So just for the record, president is Bill Compton, vice president Cole Patton, treasurer is Fola Damasio, and secretary Susan Roberts.
Great, congratulations, Bill. Morningside Lennox Park.
Hey, we welcomed 3 new board members at our first meeting of the year last week, and we also brainstormed areas to focus our efforts on for 2022. And we are super thankful to former Councilwoman Jennifer Ide and Chief of Staff Lance Orchid, as they found funding for 2 digital speed readers and additional pedestrian refugees. And now we look forward to working with Alex.
Great, thank you. Virginia Highland. Who's reporting for Virginia Highland today?
I don't think Jesselyn's here, but we do have the tour of, so I'm not actually, I don't think she's here. Jesselyn, are you here? We have the tour of homes coming up on March 19th. You can volunteer and get free tickets. It's going to be a one-day event, unlike past ones, and we'll hope you'll come and attend.
Thanks, Jack. Edmund Park. Druid Hills, or anything in the Emory CDC area? Holly? Oh, I'm sorry, Holly. You have your hand raised?
I did, for the Morningside Lennox Park. I just wanted to add some park updates. The Morningside Nature Preserve Suspension Bridge has been reopened. The city has patched those repairs. But unfortunately, another update, which Marla can certainly give more information on this, as she is chair of Wildwood Lennox Park. Unfortunately, over the storm, we had 3 trees down, and the tennis courts got rather smashed, unfortunately. So I just want to report that you might want to reschedule your tennis games for a little bit. The city has been notified.
Thank you. Rich, do you have a Parks, Trees, and Environment report?
Well, with the opening of the reopening of the suspension bridge over the South Fork, now there are 2 bridges over the South Fork that are open. One at the confluence and in the Morningside Nature Preserve. So get out and walk in this cold weather.
Thank you. Leah Matthews, do you have an education report?
Hi there. Not really a lot to report from an update from the new zoning aspect, but I did attend a special listening session for parents of special needs last month. So essentially they were just getting feedback from families that are affected in that program. So other than that, nothing to report.
Thank you. And Kay, anything else you wanted to add on public safety? We've already talked about.
Nope, we covered it. We're good.
Great, thanks. I do have a brief chair report. The community impact grants closeout is almost complete. We did get some feedback from the city, and we've got a few I's to dot and T's to cross, and then we will be finished with those items. Bill, I still haven't heard back from Tony on the amount that's needed to be invoiced to us, as we discussed. The deadline for submission for 2022 community impact grants was moved to March 4th. So we will vote on any requested project funding next month instead of this month, as I originally thought would happen. I've heard from 2 neighborhoods who have possible projects, and we'll need for them to send me some project budget information and project descriptions in the next couple of weeks so that we can work through how those funds will be distributed. NPU officers, including the chair, vice chair, zoning chairs, and APAB delegates and alternates, will attend ethics training this weekend. It's the ethics training is part of the annual mandatory chair training orientation that we have to attend every year. APAB met on Saturday. It was more of an organizational meeting. Ann Phillips, who's chair of NPU-Z, is the new president. There was 21 NPUs in attendance, which is fantastic. About half of the NPU chairs around the city are now brand new, almost like council. Leah LaRue announced that she's getting 2 new staff members in the next couple of months. A reminder that APAB is looking for a representative to the Atlanta Citizens Review Board, representing NPUs A through F. That position was last held by Jim Hardy. The ACRB reviews citizen complaints against police officers and makes recommendations to the chief of police for appropriate discipline issues with. So if you're interested in participating on that board, please let me know so that I can take your name forward. Issues with public works, particularly in the recycling and yard waste pickup, seems to be getting worse throughout the city. We did have a bit of a discussion at APAB. Please watch social media, including Nextdoor and Facebook, for announcements on scheduled pickup changes. They are changing rather frequently. Most of the issues seem to be caused by staffing shortages caused by COVID. And as I do every month, I want to remind you that NPU F is going to continue to meet virtually until further notice. Kay, did I miss anything at the APAB meeting?
Nope, I think that covers it well.
Okay, great, thanks. I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. Are there any other items that need to be discussed under old business? We have no new business.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I wanted to give a quick report on a BZA event related to one of our recommendations last month.
Jack, I'm sorry. I made a note to add that and I forgot. Go ahead.
Those of us who are familiar with the BZA will know that while we most often agree with the planning department recommendations to the BZA, which are made independently after recommendations from other sources, including the NPU, we sometimes do not. And depending on the source of the disagreement, we try to advocate our case as best we possible. Some folks will remember when Ms. Falker and Morningside and a competent lawyer made an excellent case about a illegally built deck built with no permit and built over 2 stop work orders during the pandemic, which to everyone's surprise was still recommended for approval by the planning department. But the BZA, after an extensive discussion, denied the application and ordered it removed. So a similar thing happened this past month on the Virginia Holland and the BZA and the NPU had recommended approval of a fence over the minimum required in the front and half the depth side yard setback and a slight increase in impervious allowed. And we did that after an extensive discussion. Somewhat to our surprise, the planning department itself recommended against it. But I'm happy to report that for the second time in less than a calendar year, the BZA board itself conducted a thoughtful discussion and wound up approving the variance over the objection of the planning staff. As I said, we normally try to agree with them and do. So I thought that augured well for us, and I hope that we will, when local neighborhood committees do their job and make thoughtful, careful recommendations, that are passed by the NPU and then we show up to support the applicant, it is sometimes possible to be effective. At least that's twice in 4 years anyway. That's it. That's my report, ma'am.
Great.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you very much. Any other business to come before the NPU tonight? Seeing or hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All those in favor, feel free to hang up.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Debbie.
thank you. As a reminder, you can save the chat. I'll leave the room open for a while.
And we had mostly wealthy students, were mostly white, but a woman named Sarah Harris came and wanted to be a
Okay. Okay, Jane suggested that I send the same package to an Octopus Kitchen to Mayor Bottoms. I'll take a look at that tomorrow and see if there's anything that we have to update. For the
Yeah, I
new-
think that sounds good. It was a good letter. And I don't know, I can't imagine what we'd have to change for Andre.
Me either. I have to find an address for him. I don't know that they've published.
I saw one somewhere in the last couple of days. It may have even be something he published. I'll look for it in the morning.
Okay.
What should we do about the tree ordinance letter that we were supposed to write apparently in November?
Well, I think one of the reasons
Sort of
why-
thinking Rich was supposed to draft that for you.
You know, he might have. Our meeting was just before November, or just before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And after the new council elections, which were a week later, or 2 weeks later, we had a brand new council.
Right.
And Matt had said that they were going to file those.
Yeah.
I just didn't think we needed to send it. One more piece of information that was going to get lost in.
Yeah. I think that's probably reasonable. I just, because it's in the minutes that we were going to send something. I don't know if you just are okay ignoring it or if somebody's going to complain.
I don't know. I was planning on sending it to the new council.
Right.
I'll have to go through my notes.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, that right now, there's no legislation in front of them that they can vote on or that we can vote on.
No.
The committee has a draft, but it's not legislation.
I know. I probably let Catherine go on a little too long.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, she just ignored the purpose. She knew what the purpose of Judy being there was. She just chose to ignore it. And then Howard tried to do the same thing. And he was downright insulting to Judy. I was really offended by his remarks there at the end.
Oh, I was too. And he's been bugging me for a letter to support. He wanted to know what our letter looked like for that we approved. And I told him exactly what it was going to say. We weren't
Right.
supporting either one of them. No, and Stephanie Coffin has a problem with the Citizens Blended version.
As do I. Well, I have to admit, I haven't read the whole draft, but just their letter. I had issues with their letter.
Yeah, we all did.
And that's what they were asking us to support was their letter. So And I think Judy makes a good point. You've got to be willing to compromise, and you've got to take the win you can get and not hold out for some perfect thing that any reasonable person knows is never going to get approved.
Right.
And I don't think either Catherine or Howard understands that or accepts that.
No, they are so personally committed to their own point of view.
Yeah.
That they're not seeing anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're not going to be asking the NPU for their opinion anyway. We're not going to be asked to vote on it.
On the tree protection ordinance, you don't think?
Nope.
Well,
we'll get an announcement that there'll be a opportunity for public comment.
Yeah.
And that'll be it.
Yeah. Which in a virtual environment, no one can convince me that any council member is listening to any of those call-in.
I know.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. Come on.
Well, especially when it goes on like 17 hours.
I know. I mean, even 2 hours they wouldn't sit there for.
I wouldn't either. I might have trouble sitting through the APAB meeting.
Oh my God.
That was
I have to admit, as soon as public comment starts with APAB, I hang up. There's just no point in listening to the same two guys say the same thing they said last month.
I know. I stayed on after the meeting. I was going to chat with Ann briefly, and Ben Howard jumped in, was complaining about the NPUR delegate and how they were chosen. And I think Ann was trying to explain to him that APAB has nothing to do with that.
Right.
We just get our information from Daniel. And I heard from Eunice, I didn't totally understand what she was saying, but I think Ann finally hung Ben up. I mean, just turned him off.
Right.
He wouldn't give up.
Well, the meeting had been adjourned. I mean, she really had no obligation to continue listening to him.
No, we usually talk for a few minutes at the end of the meeting afterwards. Right. Sometimes, we'd go on for an hour afterwards, just
right. Yeah,
to chat. But that's Lordy.
And our friend Jack is trying to run your meetings for you again.
I know.
But he was absolutely wrong tonight about trying to stop conversation about, Q&A from a presentation. That's ridiculous. Like Judy isn't allowed to respond to the questions when she's the presenter.
I know. I have to know how I can undo him.
We can't. We just have to learn to manage him. Which you did.
Try to just ignore him.
It would be really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But we can't.
So I'm sure he'll call me tomorrow.
Be busy.
I will. I've got a dentist appointment in the morning.
I've got a fruit fly flying around here that's making me nuts.
Oh.
I have no idea why. It's in the spare bedroom. There's no food in here.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So do you have your hair pulled back, or did you?
I do. Yeah, it looks, because I all this crap with all the cars getting broken into blew up this morning, and I had to throw some clothes on and go check my own car, and then I literally never got back upstairs to take a shower. So this is what you got.
So I took a shower at 6:05.
Okay. I probably could have done it by then, but no, actually I was still responding to, why didn't the patrol find these guys? And it's like, well, they weren't on duty because not enough of you are members to pay for them to be on duty. So yeah, I spent most of my day talking to APD and Chris and the patrol, and members of the patrol and street captains.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, he said tonight 80 cars. The number I was hearing all day was 100 cars. Either way, it's just insane.
Yeah. Do they think it's one crew or two?
I think he thinks it's one right now because their methodology is just very similar. And I watched an 8-minute video of was from the condos that are across the street from that little strip up by me where Cortex Hair Salon and blah blah and all that used to be. And you just watched them. It started and you could hear them. They were further down the street breaking windows. I mean, it's a loud noise. It sounds like a gunshot, but they're really just banging like a spark plug or something sharp on the window to break the glass. And they literally went down the row and they broke every single window. And the guy would just like dive in, check the glove box, and be out and move on to the next one. And there were 4 guys, at least 4 guys, and somebody driving this vehicle.
Wow.
And they just hit every single, and the weird thing was he had a flashlight. He was looking in the windows with his flashlight before he broke the window, but broke it anyway.
Well, you can't see.
And, you know, because most of them were empty, the cars.
Yeah.
So
I woke up and I'm not even sure what time it was. I thought my security alarm had gone off. And I was just, it took me a while to kind of figure out what I was hearing. And just as I was getting ready to climb out of bed, it stopped. So it probably was a car alarm.
Car alarm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened with these guys. In most of the cars, the alarm doesn't actually go off unless you open the door. And he must have opened the door or jostled the door enough to make the alarm go off, because that was sort of the last one in the row. The alarm went off and they all jumped back in the car and took off. But somebody else told me, yeah, but they went down the street a little ways and they waited. And as soon as the car alarm went, turned off, because they only go for a certain amount of time and then they stop.
Yeah.
They then went back and kept going down the row.
Wow.
Those apartments up behind me, they literally hit every car in that complex.
Oh my God.
And, there isn't anybody that lives up there that can afford to have to replace a window.
I know.
So.
And you said your cars weren't hurt?
No, Mark's was in back behind the gate, but mine was parked in the driveway pretty close to the street, but they didn't touch it. So I don't know why. Maybe it was too well lit there. Maybe they saw our camera. I don't know.
It sounds like they were being very efficient just by moving down the street.
Yep. And somebody posted and said they did the same thing a couple of weeks ago in Ponce Highland and got 30 or 40 cars. And then Malecki mentioned Grant Park.
Yeah.
So they're like every few days they're hitting a different neighborhood.
I think there was something in Inman Park too.
It wouldn't surprise me. But Marcia Scott, she's over there on Todd. She said one of them got cut and he bled in her car. So they've got DNA on one of them. Now, whether he's in the system, they look like they're just kids.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if it's some kind of gang thing.
yeah. I'm sure it's organized gangs. I would be really surprised if it wasn't. I mean, it may not be Bloods and Crips kind of gangs.
Yeah.
But there are lots of little neighborhood gangs, organized crime, basically.
Major Censor had an interesting report.
Didn't he?
Holy cow. Let me say that. How many? I got the address, but I didn't hear the business.
30 cars. It was at 2115 Piedmont. I don't know. I guess I could look and see if I can tell where that is, what that is.
I was
I
wondering.
think it was a residential, like apartment complex, right?
Yeah. You could tell their APD is really trying to be thorough. They're gonna
Yeah.
get these guys. Check out
Optimist Lofts, maybe?
Huh.
It looks like it's if you go Piedmont, it's right there before you go under 85.
Oh.
So past north of the Carlisle.
Okay.
So that's one of those new complexes, I think.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting place to hit, I guess, because it was close to 85.
Yeah, quick getaway.
Wow.
Oh, it's next to, I guess that's a strip club. Oh, Tattletales. It's right next to Tattletales.
Okay. And that's one of the brand new.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite new. I'm trying to see where the entrance to their parking is. I don't even know how you get to their parking. I guess it's almost right there under the overpass. There's a drive that you can go in.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they have a parking deck, but it's not gated. So it would be easy to just go, and it would be dark. It'd be easy for them to just go in there and they'd be out of sight from the street. That would be very easy. That's yeah.
Dickens. Wow.
Well, anyway.
35 warrants. Holy crap. I don't know. Did Alex stay through the entire meeting? Oh, cool.
Yeah. At least maybe he left 10 minutes early, but last time I looked, he was still there.
Cool.
Yeah. It's great to have him back.
It is. You know, we haven't seen Jennifer Ide in almost 7 months.
I know. I know. It kind of felt like, you know, she was going through that stuff with her mom passed and she just checked out.
Yeah.
Because Lance was still taking care of stuff, but I don't know anybody that heard from her. So
She was, I mean, she had introduced some legislation for the LRB, and then she was, because she was chair of the finance committee, I think she had some legislation that they had her introduce. I thought she would at least make an appearance at some point to say, you know, thanks, I'm out of here.
yeah, nope. I mean, I like her as a person. I hope she's doing okay, but it's just kind of odd to go out that way.
I know. Yeah. It's kind of disappointing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started out with very low expectations for Jennifer. Very low. And she exceeded them initially, but it didn't really last.
I don't know what she did with her carry forward account. Marla said that she gave them some money for digital readers, but I don't think she contributed to any of the other neighborhoods.
I thought she gave some money to Virginia Highland. I'm not remembering right now what I heard she gave it for. Maybe for toward the park refurbishment.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I just can't make myself go to those meetings anymore, so I miss a lot.
Why bother? Those meetings
Really, I mean, there's just no point.
are horrible.
As much as I hate to admit it, the Virginia Highland District is doing more for the neighborhood than the Civic Association these days. Not in terms of variances and that stuff, because they're not interested in that. And Jack wouldn't give it up anyway, but everything else, they're doing all the social stuff, all the fundraising stuff. They're the official group designated by the city for the Main Street program with the planning department. So that's both interesting.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so.
Because they're not an acknowledged neighborhood entity by the NPU.
And they haven't applied to be.
No.
Because they're able to get everything done that they need to get done without the NPU.
Well, yeah, a lot they just do without getting permits or.
Well, although they're past that now. I mean, there are a couple of grown-ups that have joined. So they have some adult supervision. I mean, all of the Winterfest stuff was permitted.
Oh, okay, good.
And Chris said it was really well run. I mean, he was happy to be working with them. He likes them.
Didn't Premier?
Yeah. Yep.
That probably explains why.
Yeah. Well, and Leah is working. Leah Matthews is helping them. And Chris thinks, Leah is wonderful. Well, she is wonderful.
Yeah.
She's going to burn out pretty soon, but because she's about to drop a third kid here any minute.
Oh. I haven't seen her lately. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when she's due, but I think it's pretty soon. And her youngest is only 2. I think her oldest is maybe 4 or 5. So, and she has a business she runs full time.
So she doesn't even have any kids in school.
I think Jonah might have started this year. I'm not sure, but yeah, basically all. I mean, she has a nanny, right? So, yeah. but still, that's 3 little ones at home. Oh my God.
Oh wow.
And at least 1 and maybe 2 in diapers.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
For some reason, I was thinking that her kids were a little bit older, so that she had been involved with the AP wrong one.
APS, yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's been involved, but mostly forward looking, with all this redistricting stuff. She wants her kids to be in public school, so she's been very engaged in how that's all going to shake out.
Good for her.
Yep.
Maybe one day she'll want to replace Michelle Olympiadis.
Oh my God. It'd be nice if somebody did.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I know. Well,
by the way, did you end up going to Detroit for Christmas?
I did.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I'm glad too. The froze my butt.
Oh, bad.
It was so cold. No, I was so cold.
Right.
brother-in-law keeps their house thermostat at like 65.
Oh my God.
I
I would have been whining nonstop.
was dying. Yeah, I just carried an Afghan around. No matter where I was, I had this Afghan wrapped around me.
I love it.
I was hoping he would take the hint. And then he was walking around saying, "Oh my God, it's so hot in here. Am I the only one that's hot?"
Wow.
Even my
dude.
sister was like, "No, we're freezing."
Oh my God.
Oh, it was,
That's funny.
it was- we exchanged not stocking gifts. It was a white elephant on Christmas Eve.
Uh-huh.
And I scored a basket full, not actually a basket, but a bag full of marijuana edibles.
That's great.
They're legal in Michigan.
But you couldn't bring them home with you.
Oh, wasn't I supposed to?
Oh, okay. Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Oh boy, my nephews really wanted that too.
I'll bet.
Oh, hell no, they're mine.
That could help you with your conversation with Jack tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's great. I like your family better already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we had quite the evening. Oh,
Well, we just kind of spent the whole holiday week, 2 weeks doting on Dory. So,
how is she?
well, you know, dogs, they're stoic. So you would never guess there was anything wrong with her. She had surgery on Christmas Eve. And then she had surgery again, not New Year's Eve. Well, anyway, she's had 2 surgeries since Christmas Eve. And the second one is healed now. So but she doesn't have her stitches out yet. So she's still walking around with either a cone on or this little bodysuit thing that keeps her from chewing at her stitches. But they'll come out on Wednesday. We're going to go see the oncologist. And we don't know. I mean, we know that the mass that was removed is bad. I mean, it's a stage 3 mast cell.
Oh, no.
But it's still possible that it hasn't spread, and we won't know until the oncologist runs some tests on Wednesday. But he should be able to tell pretty easily. With mast cell, it almost always goes first to the spleen or the liver. So he can do ultrasound and he can see on an ultrasound if there's growths and things going on there, or if it's enlarged. You know, and if it's not, we'll probably do some chemo treatment and hope that she's good to go for a while.
That's good. Yeah, I understand dogs handle chemo really well.
Lady handled chemo really well. It didn't really seem to phase her at all. It didn't affect her appetite. Didn't even make her sleepy. It was just fine. Dory is not. She's a little more sensitive. You know, she, depending on what she eats, you know, she might throw up, which we always said Lady had a cast iron stomach. She could eat anything and she was fine. So you know, there's no guarantee, but generally, yeah, generally they do tolerate it pretty well. And our vet told us to expect that he would probably do a chemo treatment on Wednesday. So we'll know pretty quickly.
Oh, okay.
Whether she's going to tolerate it.
Where is the oncologist?
Well, it's Blue Pearl, you know, which used to be Georgia Veterinary Specialists.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they have the office in Sandy Springs, which is where we went with Lady, but they now have one over on the west side on Howell Mill.
Oh.
So we're going to go there. I mean, that's much more convenient than hauling up to Sandy Springs.
Yeah. we took Spencer to their Sandy Springs office when he had his thyroid irradiated. And I was just really impressed with how well they handled that.
Yeah, we thought they were just wonderful for Lady. We had Dr. Hamilton up there, was the oncologist, and he was great. And we could have gone up there, but our vet had worked with this Dr. Evans here on Howell Mill with her dog. And she said and she knows Dr. Hamilton. She did a residency with him. She said he's just as good and just as kind. She said he's the nicest man. So we're gonna keep it here in town. So
good.
So we'll see.
How old is Dory?
She's only 5.
Oh, she's young.
Yeah, but actually Lady had 2 mast cell tumors removed, one when she was about 5 and one when she was about 8, and neither one of them, they told us neither one required any further treatment. And then, when she was 13, they found it in her liver and it was everywhere. It could be that one of those spread slowly, who knows? But so I guess they're just really common. Certainly, especially in certain breeds of dog, Labradors, and Dory's part lab. So, so she could have this one and she could come through it fine and she could go several more years and then have another one. Just, so.
Well, she's very lucky to have such wonderful parents.
We definitely dote on her.
Yeah.
We canceled all of our dinner reservations over the holidays because we didn't want to leave her alone in her crate.
Oh, poor thing.
So, yeah, but we're, I'm going to be optimistic until I have a good reason not to be. So
good.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep. So
I know it's hard. There's something about pets being sick that they won't tell you when they're not feeling well.
Right.
Yeah,
that's the really, they can't tell you. And like I said, they're so stoic. I guess that's sort of inbred that you don't show weakness.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it makes it hard to know what's going on. We gave her all the pain meds that we could give her though, because I didn't want her to hurt.
No, good. When we got Skylar, I think he was the last one, we are bad parents, and we had always had their front claws removed,
right,
in order to keep them in the house, which I know is a horrible thing to do, but it's we've had cats with claws and that just doesn't work. And when he came home, he had a cone on, and they had given him some pain medication on a bandage.
Okay.
That they, it was pretty big size. It was maybe like a 3x5 card that they had attached to his side, and they wrote what it was and what the dosage was. And when he would walk down the hall, he'd look like a moving billboard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, over the last 4 weeks, we were giving her pills every day. So she went through about half a 2-pound brick of Velveeta cheese. Because we wrap the pill in the Velveeta and it goes right down.
You sure that mass isn't cheese?
Yeah, right. Entirely possible. Oh gosh.
Poor.
Well, I should probably get off.
Yeah, me too.
I've still got wet clothes in the washing machine and 7 other things I should probably do before bed.
I've been promising myself that I would change the linens on my bed for about a week and a half. And it ain't gonna happen tonight either.
Nah,
Maybe
it's been
tomorrow.
too cold to sweat, so they're probably almost clean.
I know. Yeah. So we still need to have lunch,
Yes, we need to get that scheduled. I agree.
maybe next week.
Yeah, if we can find someplace open. It's crazy how many places, because of staffing,
I know.
just aren't open. I feel bad for all these businesses.
I was gonna say we might have to do a McDonald's or a Wendy's or something, but I think
Right.
they're having problems too.
Yeah, it's bad for everybody. It's really amazing. But so
Well, good luck with Dorian Wednesday.
thank you. I'll let you know how it goes.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Have a
Have a
nice
good night.
You too. But
Bye.
okay. Oh God, my hair looks like shit. All righty.